Found out my stepmom burned all my mum's old photos to make room for herself. Now she's angry I'm giving my daughter my mum's name. I honestly don't even know where to begin with this one, but I'll try to keep it together. A little backstory. I 29F lost my mum when I was 18. She was my world, and her passing hit me like a ton of bricks. I went through a tough few years after that, and my dad 52M was obviously devastated too, but he was always there for me. We were a tight-knit family, even after the hard stuff. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, when my dad started dating my now stepmom, Jessica 40F. At first, I was skeptical. Jessica and my dad had a pretty whirlwind romance, and honestly, I wasn't convinced she was the right fit for him. She was a little much, if you know what I mean, but she seemed to love my dad, so I tried to be open-minded. They got married about a year ago, and I was more or less fine with it. I'm an adult. I don't expect everything to stay the same forever. But recently, some things have come to light that have completely shaken me. About a month ago, I was at my dad's house visiting and decided to go through some old boxes in their attic. I was looking for stuff that belonged to my mum, like her favorite books and some old letters we'd written to each other. I've been really nostalgic lately, and my mum's memory has been a huge part of how I process life. My daughter 3F, Lily, has been asking a lot of questions about her grandmother, so I've been trying to keep my mum's legacy alive for her. Well, I was in the attic for maybe an hour or so, sifting through boxes when I came across something strange. A bunch of my mum's old photos had been tossed in a box, but they were burned. Burned. You could barely make out their faces or details anymore. I thought I was going crazy, honestly. I know my dad wasn't into doing that, and Jessica didn't seem like the type either, so I immediately asked my dad what happened. He was silent for a minute and then said something like, "Oh yeah, Jessica thought it would be a good idea to clear some space in the house, so she threw out a bunch of old stuff. I didn't stop her." I was completely floored. The photos weren't just old photos either, they were family photos. They were of me as a kid with my mom, our vacations, and even just the quiet moments. They were irreplaceable memories, and now they were gone. When I confronted Jessica about it, she was completely unapologetic. She said something like, "Well, those photos were just taking up space. Your mom's gone. It's time for you to move on and make room for new memories." She was pretty dismissive about it, almost like it was no big deal. At this point, I was angry, sad, confused. A mess, honestly. I tried talking to my dad again, but he just kept telling me that Jessica was trying to help and that she had good intentions. I didn't buy it. I've never felt so hurt and disrespected. But here's the kicker. After all of that, Jessica found out I'm planning to give my daughter Lily my mom's name. I know it sounds like a small thing, but my mom's name means a lot to me, and it feels like the perfect way to honor her memory. My dad knew about this plan for months and supported it, but when Jessica found out, she freaked out. She said I was being childish and that it's not even her name to give anymore. She told me I was being too sentimental and holding on to the past. I can't even explain how hurtful that was. She burned my mum's photos, then acted like I was the one being unreasonable for trying to keep a piece of my mum's memory alive for my daughter. What the hell? It feels like she's erasing my mum from our lives on purpose. Now, Jessica's angry with me. She's accusing me of trying to ruin her happiness and making her feel like she's second best. She says I'm not giving her a fair chance to have her own role in our family and that I'm being petty for not just getting over it. My dad's caught in the middle, and while he's trying to be supportive, I can tell he's avoiding the confrontation. I don't even know what to do at this point. I'm so torn. On one hand, I don't want to make things worse with my dad, but on the other, I can't just sit back and let Jessica walk all over my memories, my mum, and my family. It feels like she's erasing the parts of my life that matter the most to me. Has anyone been in a similar situation? Am I just being overly sensitive, or is Jessica out of line? Should I back off and try to make peace, or do I stand my ground and keep trying to protect my mum's legacy in my daughter's life? Sorry if this is all over the place. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and I'm really struggling with this. I just need some advice before I do something I might regret. Update 1, about 5 days later. Wow, okay. I didn't expect this to blow up like it has, but thank you all for the advice, support, and words of encouragement. I've read through so many of your comments, and honestly, it's given me a lot to think about. Some of you have been in similar situations, and hearing your stories made me feel less alone in this. Others gave me some tough but needed truths about how I'm handling everything. I'm still processing it all, but here's the update. I spent the last few days trying to figure out what to do next, and let me tell you, it's been exhausting. Part of me wants to just lay low, avoid the drama, and let things cool off. But the other part of me, the part that's still angry and heartbroken over the photos, feels like I can't just let this slide. So, after some long thinking, I decided to take a direct approach and have another conversation with Jessica. Now, I'll be honest, this wasn't easy. I'm not exactly confrontational by nature. I avoid conflict when I can, but I couldn't keep pushing this under the rug. I started by talking to my dad, who, as usual, was trying to mediate but not really offering any solid help. I said, "Dad, I need you to hear me. I'm not trying to tear our family apart, but what Jessica did with the photos, it hurt. And what she said about my mom's name, it felt like she doesn't even care about me or my history." My dad listened, but it's clear he's not fully getting it. He kept repeating how Jessica's trying to make this family work, and we should all try to blend. I don't know. It's like he's too focused on keeping the peace, and that's frustrating. But I digress. After talking to my dad, I called Jessica and asked if we could sit down and have a real talk. I won't lie, my nerves were shot, and I almost backed out. But I knew I needed to do this for my own peace of mind. When I sat down with Jessica, I tried to be as calm and clear as possible. I said, "I want to talk about the photos. I know you probably didn't think much of it, but those pictures were all I had left of my mom. And now they're gone. It hurts more than you probably realize." At first, she looked defensive, almost annoyed. She said, "This again? I already told you, it was just a few pictures. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." And I gotta be honest, that reaction, it stung. It made me feel like she just doesn't see how much it meant to me. But I didn't go back down. I kept going. "I'm not making a mountain out of a molehill. These were my memories. You didn't just get rid of things, you destroyed them. And now you're telling me that I shouldn't be sentimental about my mom's legacy. You're not in her place, Jessica, and you'll never understand what it's like to lose a parent. I'm not trying to hold you to some impossible standard, but I'm just asking for respect. I'm trying to protect what little I have left of her." It was quiet for a second. Then Jessica sighed, rolling her eyes. "Look, I'm not going to apologize for clearing space in this house. Your mom's been gone for years, and you're still acting like she's here." That stung too, but I tried to stay calm. "I'm not acting like she's here," I said, "but you're asking me to act like she never existed, like she wasn't important." We went back and forth like that for a while, and I'm not going to lie, there were some moments where I almost wanted to give up, but I kept telling myself, "This is your mom. You don't go back down." So I told her, "Jessica, I'm not sure you understand how deeply I feel about my mom's name and memory. But if I give Lily my mom's name, that's not to erase you or your role. It's just honoring the woman who gave me life and taught me everything I know." That part seemed to make her pause for a moment. She looked at me like she was really thinking it over and then said, "I still think it's silly. You can't just hold on to the past forever." That's when I said, "No one's asking you to hold on to the past, Jessica. But I'm allowed to hold on to my memories. And I'm allowed to honor my mom, even if it makes you uncomfortable." Now, to be honest, I'm not sure that conversation really solved anything. Jessica was still defensive, but I thought at least she heard me, even if she wasn't willing to admit it. At the end of it, she told me, "Fine, but I'm not okay with it." And I said, "I understand that, but it's happening, and I'm not going to let you make me feel guilty for honoring my mom." Since then, there's been a lot of tension. Jessica hasn't really spoken to me much, and when she does, it's clipped, short, and very much avoiding the issue. My dad's been caught in the middle again, trying to smooth things over, but he's still not taking a hard stance on any of it. I know he's trying to keep the peace, but I don't know if he truly understands how important this is to me. It's been tough, and I don't think it's over. I still feel like Jessica's not really hearing me, and I don't know what's going to happen with my daughter's name. But I'm standing my ground for now. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much, you know? I just want my mum's memory to be respected. Update 2, about 2 weeks later. I didn't expect to be back here so soon with more updates, but things have definitely escalated. I've been getting a lot of comments and messages from you all, so I wanted to let you know how things have played out in the last couple of weeks. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster, and I'm still processing it all. So after the last update, I thought things might calm down a bit. But no, Jessica's been acting increasingly cold, and my dad, as expected, hasn't been able to step in and really fix anything. It's honestly frustrating. I've realized that I've been waiting for him to take my side more than I should. I keep hoping he'll step in and just tell Jessica that she's out of line, but that hasn't happened. I think he's still more concerned about keeping the peace than actually admitting how hurt I am. The big blow-up came last weekend when my daughter, Lily, and I were at my dad's house for dinner. Everything was going fine until Jessica brought up the name thing again. I don't know why she felt the need to bring it up, but she did. She asked me in front of everyone, "So, are we seriously going to go through with this name thing? Are you really going to name your daughter after a dead woman who never even got to know her?" I could feel my blood pressure rising, and I'm sure everyone else could too. My dad looked uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. It was one of those moments where everything felt like it was spinning, and I knew if I didn't speak up, I'd regret it. So I took a deep breath and said, "You know what, Jessica? My mum may not have known Lily, but that doesn't mean she didn't shape who I am. She may have been gone for years, but her legacy isn't something I'm just going to forget about because it makes you uncomfortable. And if you can't respect that, then I don't know how to move forward." There was a long, heavy silence. Jessica didn't say anything for a minute, and then she just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. But I could tell she was smoking. My dad finally piped up, trying to calm things down, saying, Okay, let's not get into this now. We're here for dinner. Let's just focus on enjoying the evening." But Jessica wasn't having it. She shot back with, "No, it's fine. Let her have her little moment. It's clear she's not going to go back down, so why bother?" That stung, and it was like everything I was feeling just hit me all at once. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I felt like I was about to break down right there in front of everyone. I couldn't believe she was still so dismissive about something that meant so much to me. It felt like she was mocking me, like my feelings just didn't matter. When I came back, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My dad was trying to change the subject, but Jessica kept making little passive-aggressive remarks. Finally, she said, "You're making this into a bigger issue than it is, you know? It's just a name. Why can't you just let go of the past and be realistic about moving forward?" That was the moment I lost it. I snapped and said, "What's realistic about erasing my mother's memory just to make you feel more comfortable in this house? What's realistic about trying to replace someone who meant the world to me just because you think I need to move on? You don't get to tell me how to grieve, Jessica. You don't get to dictate what parts of my life are important." At that point, things got so heated that my dad both told of us to calm down. He said, "This is getting out of hand. I don't want to hear another word about the name. We're family, and I want us to get along." But the damage was done. The evening ended in awkward silence, and when I left, I felt emotionally drained. It was like this whole situation was becoming bigger than I ever anticipated. The next day, Jessica sent me a message. At first, I thought maybe she was going to apologize, but no. She told me that I was being ungrateful and irrational. She said that she was just trying to make things easier for everyone, but I was making her feel like an outsider and that I was being disrespectful to her. She also mentioned that if I wanted to hold on to the past, I could do it somewhere else, and that maybe it was time for me to find my own space to grieve. Honestly, this message made me so angry that I didn't know how to respond. I felt like I was being emotionally manipulated. She's the one who burned my mom's pictures, but somehow I'm the one who's being unreasonable. I didn't reply to her message right away. I needed time to process, but I know I'll have to say something at some point. The worst part of all of this is seeing my dad get caught in the middle. He's been trying to keep the peace, but it's clear to me now that he's not willing to stand up to Jessica when it counts. And I get it, he's married to her, and he doesn't want to rock the boat. But it's exhausting for me to feel like my feelings don't matter in the situation. So right now, I'm stuck. I still haven't replied to Jessica's message because I don't want to get into another argument. But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here. I've tried to be respectful, I've tried to communicate, but it feels like no matter what I do, she's determined to make this about her discomfort rather than seeing how hurt I am. I'm at a crossroads now, and I'm honestly not sure what to do next. I've talked to a few close friends about it, and they've all said that I'm not the one in the wrong. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm being labeled as the villain in this situation, and it's starting to wear me down. Update 3. 3 weeks later. I've been holding off on posting for a bit because, well, things have continued to be a mess. To be honest, I thought things would settle down after the big blow-up at my dad's house. But nope, things have just gotten weirder. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's reached out and offered support. I read all of your comments, and a lot of what you've said really helped me process everything. I needed that. Let's start with where things left off. Jessica's message after the fight. I didn't reply right away, mostly because I didn't want to say something I'd regret. But after a few days, I realized I had to respond. So I sent her a message that was pretty direct. I told her that I was hurt, that I didn't appreciate her dismissing my feelings, and that I needed her to understand why my mom's memory was so important to me. I also told her that I wasn't going to change the name I've chosen for my daughter, and that I didn't want to argue about it anymore. She didn't take it well at all. She replied with a huge wall of text, accusing me of holding on to grudges and trying to make her the villain. She said I was so obsessed with the past that I was ruining the present, and that I should be more mature about everything. I was honestly kind of taken aback by how cold and condescending her message was. She even said that if I cared so much about my mum's memory, I should have kept those photos safe and not let them get burned in the first place. As if it was my fault she burned them. I mean, seriously? But here's the part that got me the most. She said that if I really cared about my family, I would stop being so selfish and let my dad have some peace. She actually said, "You're making all of this about you, and it's tearing this family apart." That line really stung because it felt like she was turning everything around on me. Like I'm the one doing things difficult just by trying to honor my mom. It made me feel like I was in some sort of twisted version of family therapy, where everything that's bothering me is dismissed as me just being too emotional or unreasonable. I honestly didn't know how to respond to that, so I took a step back. I read her message a couple more times, trying to see if maybe I was being overly sensitive, but no, I wasn't. I was just asking for basic respect, and she still wasn't giving it. The worst part is, my dad just doesn't seem to be seeing the issue. He's still in this let's not rock the boat mindset, which has been pretty frustrating. He's told me a few times that Jessica doesn't mean any harm, and that she's just trying to move forward. Which, okay, fine, but what about me? At this point, I really started questioning whether my dad was going to have my back in this. I've been leaning on him for support, hoping he'd stand up for me, or at least show some understanding of why this is hurting me. But it feels like he's more concerned about making sure Jessica feels comfortable in the family dynamic than standing up for what's right. It's honestly been tearing me apart a little. I thought we were closer than this, but his silence on the issue has been deafening. A few days after that, I finally decided to reach out to my aunt, my mom's sister. I've always been close to her, and I needed someone who'd understand how much this all stings. I explained everything, from the photos being burned to the name argument. And let me tell you, my aunt went off in a way that I couldn't. She's been such a rock for me throughout all of this, and she made me realize that I'm not the one in the wrong here. She was furious with Jessica, not only for burning the photos, but also for trying to erase my mom's legacy from the family. My aunt said I needed to stand firm on the name because it's my daughter and it's my decision. She even offered to sit down with my dad and Jessica to try and clear the air. I haven't decided if I'm going to take her up on that yet, but it's nice to know I have someone in my corner. So, here's where things stand right now. I've spoken to my dad a couple of times since the last blow-up, but nothing has changed. He's still not addressing the issue head-on. He keeps brushing it off like it'll fix itself, and it's honestly exhausting. I know he's trying to keep the peace, but he's just not acknowledging how hurt I am by the whole situation. I've even asked him straight up, "Why is it so hard for you to see where I'm coming from?" And his response was, "It's just complicated." Well, yeah, it's complicated, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed. The lack of support has made me feel like I'm fighting this battle on my own. And Jessica, she's still being passive-aggressive, but now she's taken it a step further. She's been making snide comments about my mom, specifically about how I'm obsessed with her and how it's not healthy to keep holding on to the past like I do. It's been hard to hear, but I'm trying to ignore it for the sake of my sanity. But I'm not going to lie, it's eating away at me. I don't know how much longer I can just let her walk all over me like this. I've also been thinking more about the name. I'm not second-guessing it at all, but I'm starting to realize how big of a deal it is to Jessica. She's already made it clear that she's not thrilled about it, and I can tell that she's holding on to that resentment. I don't know what that means for our relationship, but at this point, I don't know how to make her understand without sacrificing what's important to me. I'm trying to stay firm in my decision, but honestly, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. I'm torn between wanting to keep the peace for the sake of my dad and wanting to make it clear that my feelings and my family's history matter. I don't want to be the bad guy here, but it feels like I'm being painted as one just for holding on to something that's meaningful to me. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but I'll keep you all updated. I'm trying to find a way to navigate all of this without losing my sense of self in the process. I just wish my dad would see this for what it is instead of ignoring it, but at least I'm not totally alone in this. Update 4, 1 month later. Okay, here we are again. It's been a month, and I have a lot to update you all on. Buckle up, because things have been complicated. I didn't expect everything to be resolved overnight, but wow, I really didn't think things would get this messy either. Before I dive in, thank you again for all the messages of support. Honestly, it's helped me more than I can explain. I needed some solid advice and just a reminder that I'm not being unreasonable. A lot of you shared experiences that made me feel seen, and some of you even gave me perspective on how to handle my dad. I took it all to heart. So, where do I begin? The first thing I want to address is what I said in the last post about my dad. I was feeling pretty abandoned at that point, and I'm not going to lie, a lot of that frustration has stuck with me. I think a part of me was holding out hope that he'd suddenly get it and take my side. But as time went on, I had to accept that he's just not going to make this easy. That said, things have gotten a bit better since then. After I posted that last update, I decided to take a step back from the constant back and forth with Jessica. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and honestly starting to wonder if it was all worth it. But then my dad did something I wasn't expecting. He actually asked to sit down with me for a serious conversation. I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be another, let's just move past this type of thing. But it wasn't. At least, not entirely. It was like he finally realized that this wasn't just about the name, but about how I was being treated. So we talked, and it wasn't perfect, but it was something. I started off by telling him, once again, how much it hurt to see my mum's memory being erased. I explained that the photo she had of me, my childhood, and the memories of our family were all I had left of her. I told him how painful it was to think that Jessica had just decided that those memories weren't important enough to keep. And I mentioned that her complete disregard for my feelings made me feel like I didn't matter in the family, like I was a burden to them because of my attachment to my mom's memory. To my surprise, he listened. He didn't interrupt me, he didn't make excuses, he just listened. And at the end of it, he actually apologized. Not just for the photos being burned, but for not standing up for me sooner. He admitted that he had been more focused on making Jessica feel comfortable than on understanding how much all of this was affecting me. He said that he didn't realize how deeply it was hurting me, and that he should have done better. I'm not going to lie, I cried. It felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders to hear him say that, even though it was still hard to forgive him completely. But I was glad he was acknowledging it. Then came the part where he said something that surprised me. He told me he wanted to have a conversation with Jessica. Not in a confrontational way, but in a way that could help clear the air between us. I honestly didn't think that was going to happen, but I agreed. It felt like we were finally starting to make progress. It wasn't about picking sides. It was about him understanding that this wasn't just a silly family disagreement. This was about me, my history, and the way I was being treated. Now, about Jessica. Well, after that conversation with my dad, I wasn't holding my breath. But things took an unexpected turn. My dad and I arranged a meeting with Jessica, just the three of us. I was prepared for her to be defensive, for her to turn it all around and make it about how she was the victim. But she actually surprised me. When we sat down, she didn't immediately lash out like I thought she would. It was like she knew this was bigger than her pride. She admitted that she never understood how deeply the photos meant to me, and she actually apologized for burning them. She said that she didn't realize how much it would hurt me, and that she had acted out of frustration and jealousy. She also admitted that she had been trying to make space in my dad's life, but that she hadn't considered how it would affect me. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was an apology nonetheless, and I appreciated the honesty. I've been around long enough to know that sometimes it takes a while for people to truly get it, and I think she was starting to understand that my mom wasn't just some ghost from the past, but a real part of my life that I wasn't ready to let go of. Now, about the name. I wasn't expecting Jessica to change her stance on that, but after everything we talked about, I actually felt more confident in keeping my daughter's name the way I've planned. My dad said he understood why it was important to me, and he even said he would support it. Jessica didn't love the idea, but she didn't argue with me about it anymore. I think she's realizing that her opinion on it doesn't carry the weight she thought it did. I'm not gonna lie, it still feels awkward with her, but at least there's no open hostility anymore. The last thing I want to mention is how things have changed with my dad. He's been more present, more apologetic, and he's trying harder to be understanding. I won't say everything is fixed, because there's still a lot of healing to do, but I'm starting to feel like my family is moving toward a place where we can coexist without all this tension. The relationship with my dad is still a work in progress, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like there's potential for things to improve. So, where does that leave me? Honestly, I still have a lot of mixed emotions. I'm glad we're talking, and I'm glad that Jessica and I are on better terms, but I'm still hurt by everything that happened. It's not easy to forget the way she acted and the way my dad ignored my feelings for so long. But I'm trying to take it one day at a time, knowing that the most important thing is that I'm sticking to my guns when it comes to my daughter's name and honoring my mum's memory. I still don't know how it's going to play out long term, but I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can move forward without feeling like I have to compromise everything that matters to me. Thank you to everyone who's been following along. I really appreciate all of you. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, I think things are heading in the right direction.